So, welcome back to the second Joseph M. Leather podcast. I'm here with Steve from Gully Leather.
How you doing?
Steve. Yeah. No, it's very good to have you on because we've been good friends for quite a while, and as two leather workers, it would be nice to hear your story. So, how'd you get into leather work?
Well, it was kind of I guess, a long, drawn out process. It's something that sort of grew on me over many years. Um, I guess, yeah, it probably started long before I realised my interest in it specifically. When I was a kid, you like when watching movies and you see the hero, and he's always got the belt and the sidearm and or whatever, and I always thought it was pretty cool, wear the leather jacket you know, and I always enjoyed that sort of thing. I had a real sense of adventure myself, and I just, over the years, I was interested in leather, leather craft, but that came a bit later. But essentially, what really brought everything into focus was my design background. So I used to be a graphic designer, and but what I didn't realize. That I was really a product designer. I mean, I was a very prolific drawer when I was young. Spent most of my time drawing when I should have been doing my schoolwork. And I found myself always drawing designs for different things. I mean, when I was little, it could have been robots and rocket ships and cars and whatever. But yeah, I found that I was really a designer. So that's kind of brought everything into focus for me. So that's what's brought me to really take on leather craft as a career.
Yeah. So was there a specific instance where I don't know, because I don't know, for me, like in my story, I found a video on YouTube, and just from that one video, I got into leatherwork. Was there a specific moment where it happened, or was it just a thing that you sort of slowly mellowed into?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't a specific moment. It was. I can remember when I bought my first leather jacket, and it was, I felt really cool, and I enjoyed wearing it, and and I used to be frustrated that the fake leather belts used to break, so I used to appreciate a nice good leather belt and that sort of thing. Same with shoes, it was like you buy shoes and they're not real leather and they kind of fall apart on you after about a
Yeah.
year, and so, very early on, I kind of appreciated the quality of leather. I
Hmm.
appreciated the smell, the texture, the look.
Yeah.
It was a very sensory thing for me, and I'm sure it
Hmm.
is for a lot of leather workers. Just just enjoying a leather product that you'd use for personal use, whether it be belt or jacket or whatever. And but I had a lot of other interests that kind of had a commonality, like I was into motorcycling, I was into archery, I wanted to be a pilot. I did some flight training for a while, and yeah, I just really wanted to be the person that I admired. I see different people, living their lives and doing exciting things, and whether it be a nice leather bag or whatever it was always seemed to be whoever I wanted to be as a person. Almost required me to have these things, to
Hmm.
feel like I was. Uh, uh, just a more of a part of what I was doing, I guess, and that hasn't changed to this day. I really enjoy um, the idea that you can make something that is so practical, so desirable in the sense of the quality of it. That they're just strong, they're just rugged. Like I take a good backpack, for example. Something like go camping in. Something that you can just throw everything in that you need and off you go. and you didn't have to worry about ripping or if you got wet, you just dry it and it was fine, and off you go. I mean, a lot of synthetic materials these days that kind of crowd into the what was traditionally a leather domain.
Yeah.
But I think on the whole, there were times where I could look back and say, yeah, that's I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You never just walk into a shop as a poor kid, looking at the leather jackets. That was probably how it started.
Mhm.
I think, oh, I'd love to have a jacket like that. It looks so cool.
Yeah.
And so eventually I got myself one, and and I just really appreciated
Yeah.
the craftsmanship, the practicality of it all, and the look and the smell, everything. It was just I got hooked from then on, I'd say.
Mhm. What flight training did you do? Did you do helicopter or a plane?
Oh, I actually started off on hang gliders, and
Oh, okay.
I used to have to travel. They only did hang gliding training like way down south, like here in Adelaide. I was living up more the northern area, and I had to go right down the southern area to because they had good sand dunes and stuff down there.
Yeah.
And so I could only go down once a week. It was a really long drive, and and it was kind of I enjoyed it, and I was I had visions of being this, traveling around the world and doing hang gliding championships and living that sort of life, which would have been fantastic if I went that way. But being typical me, I kind of was looking at the ultimate, and I thought, well, actually, what I really want to be is a pilot as well. Apart from being a designer and illustrator and things, but I wanted to be a pilot as well. So I started again doing light aircraft training in
Yeah.
two seaters, side by side two
Oh,
seaters,
that's cool.
and the aircraft was called a what was it called again? It was
Cessna?
forgot the name of them now. Come back to me. And it wasn't a Cessna. It was a low wing two seater
Yeah.
trainer,
Yeah.
4-cylinder engine, and so you used to go up, and flight training was reasonably cheap then. It was under $100 an hour, so
Wow.
it's pretty much when I was working, it was like I had a pretty big chunk of my pay into flight training.
Yeah.
And I got to, and again, I had visions of, having the, getting on with the aviator sunglasses and leather jacket and going off for a fly, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And but then I moved interstate, and I thought I'll just take it up when I get there, and it didn't quite work out. Flight training was a lot more expensive over time, and didn't have regular work for a while, and it kind of
What is hang gliding? Is that the one that on the beach, or is that when you jump off like a cliff and you glide down? Is that the?
Yeah, that's the jump off the cliff or run down the hill one. Yeah,
Oh
that
wow.
was
Okay. That's what they do in like Switzerland
and
and off the mountains.
yes, yeah,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
that would have been a lot better actually if I kept up with that, because there's no instruments. I think it had a little altitude meter on it, but
Yeah.
essentially you wouldn't fly unless you had really good weather and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
Can you fly in windy when it's windy
um,
or not?
you just want a good breeze. You want a good thermal, which is sort of an upward spiral heat.
Yeah.
So you kind of get into a spiral where you kind of get into it, and you kind of spiral up to a certain altitude, and
Mhm.
then you can get out of that spiral. It's like over rocks or a big car park or
Yeah.
somewhere where there's hot ground. You'd get
Mhm.
like a thermal going up, and you kind of go over that and you spiral up, and then you kind of leave that thermal, and then you can glide, and you can theoretically find another thermal, spiral back up again, and you can actually travel hundreds of kilometers doing that in the right
Wow, that's cool.
circumstances. And
Yeah,
but I
there's
never really did got that far, of course. So it
yeah.
would have been fun
Um,
though. Yeah,
there's a
but it
guy.
did it
Oh, go on. Sorry.
yeah.
I was gonna say there's a guy on
I
your
was say it did
peninsula that when he
yeah.
he has like a fan on the back of his himself, and he like flies along the cliff face with a parachute on.
Yeah, yeah, that's more of like I think it's like a parasailing type of thing,
Oh, okay, yeah.
where you have the it's more like a it's kind of a collapsible wing thing.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean a lot of the modern parachutes are similar to that. You put an engine on your back and you kind of off you go, and but that would have been good too. But yeah, but it did feed my growing appetite for adventure as a young guy,
Yeah.
and I'm glad I did it. I mean, I think it's one of those things where you might regret not even at least giving it a go. It's
Hmm.
the old adage. If you're an old man and you don't want to have regrets. You don't want to say, oh, I wish I'd tried that. I wish I did this or that.
Yeah.
And I've never been that sort of person. I thought, nah, I'd rather try and fail than not try at all. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Did yeah, because I'm interested in helicopters. Like, I'm obsessed with. I really do like helicopters, and I know that you can actually at Parafield you can actually go up in a helicopter or a plane, and you just sort of like test it out, where you fly around for a little bit just to sort of see if you're interested or not. But yeah, that's fascinating. Hang gliding, I didn't even know you could do that down.
oh yeah. I mean, it's they're quite advanced. And the one I was going to get originally was called a Moyer's Mission. It was a particular type of glider,
Mm.
and but yeah, it was it was funny because it was conflicting with my interest in motorbikes because carrying a hang glider on the roof of your car is quite a challenge in itself and impossible on a motorbike. So
Yeah.
that's partly why I got out of it because I thought I was, that sense of adventure was pulling me in different directions.
Yeah.
Hang gliding required a certain type of car and a certain, um, allowance of time and weather and everything else. And it was too conditional in the sense that there was a lot of factors you had to consider
Hmm.
to, not just transport a hang glider, but to fly it in the first place. And then you obviously got to land it and fold it up. And,
Yeah.
it's a big thing to do. But with motorcycling, I found, to me, it was like flying without wings. It was like you had the same
Oh.
sensation as
Yeah.
as flying. Um, you still had that sense of speed and the wind on you, and it was just really exciting for me.
Hmm.
And so I thought, well, you know what, gliding's fun, flying was fun, but motorcycling, I can do that any day. It doesn't have to be perfect weather. It doesn't have to be, you can just be going to work. You can enjoy it every day, and that was what I really loved about motorcycling, was the fact that you could just get on there. You didn't really. I mean, even when I was young, before I got married, I didn't even know where I was going half the time. I'd be getting on my bike, warming it up, and thinking, "Where am I going to go today?" But it didn't really matter. The fact is that I was on there, and I could enjoy the ride,
Yeah.
and which is again where the leather work comes into it, because there were so many things. You had the jacket, belt, boots, saddlebags, tool bags. You can, the pinion bag, which is the big one that goes at the back.
Yeah.
You could carry a lot of stuff on the bike, and a lot of the time, you prefer to have either leather or wax canvas, or a
Hmm.
combination of the two. Again, it made the bike look cool, and it made it more practical. And yeah, so again, that's where the leatherwork and sense of adventure kind of collided again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably where my main direction is. I've had like 5 motorbikes in my time, and I'm hoping to get my next one in a month or two.
Yeah.
And then I'll be able to make my own saddlebags and everything for it.
What motorcycle did you have?
It's
The,
I've had all sorts. I started off on just a trail bike,
oh
and then
yeah.
I moved to a 750 road bike, and then I moved to like a Paris Dakar like endurance type motorbike with a giant petrol tank on it,
Hmm.
and then I went to a sports tourer, which is more like a sports bike, but more designed for long distances. They were
Yeah.
pretty good. I enjoyed them. But actually, when I got the Cruiser, it was 1100 Yamaha Cruiser, and I actually didn't enjoy it. It was just because your feet were in front of you. You couldn't really stand up on the pegs, or anything
Yeah.
like that. You kind of had to rely on the quality of the seat and that sort of thing. And plus, I used to get, I'd ride in the rain and my shoes would fill out with water, and it didn't have a windscreen or anything on it. And I thought, this is not as fun as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So, but my next bike I'm hoping to get is a 1979 Yamaha XV 1100. It's more of a classic bike, air cooled. More, I can sort of convert it into more of a cafe racer type of thing.
Yeah.
And again, I can put saddlebags on it and tool bags and things like that. So that's kind of where I'm going to be heading next, I hope. So
Yeah.
So see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to get my motorbike license, but I just don't want to get stung by a bee. Then
I've never been stung by a bee, but
no. Okay.
I did get hit in between the eyes by a bee. I think it was, or it was
Yeah.
a grasshopper or something. And luckily, I used to wear like tinted safety glasses
Yeah.
when I was riding, and a big bug. I had my visor up on my helmet, and this big bug hit me right in the center of between the eyes on the frame of the glasses. And it hit so hard, it pushed the glasses into my head. It was, thought, man, what was that? And but that doesn't happen. As long as you've got eye protection, you're fine. So,
Yeah.
but I've
Yeah,
never been stung by a bee.
Yeah, my brother had a KTM. I forgot what. I'm not sure if it was 500cc or, but
Yeah,
that was when you get into second gear, it just wants to take off.
yeah,
Just
yeah. Well, that's what you
incredible
want.
the
I mean,
power.
that's half the fun, just to
Yeah.
just to ride the curbs and yeah. I mean, it's a very social thing to do too. Like you ride with other riders, and
Yeah.
we got that camaraderie as well,
Mhm.
riding and enjoying experiencing the
Yeah.
joy of riding together and that sort of thing. So, I mean, you can ride alone and enjoy it. I mean, you can ride with a group of people. You can get into a club or go to a charity event. There's actually a couple of charity events now where you can go as a motorcyclist.
Mhm.
Specifically. I mean, a lot of rides for men's health now for depression and prostate cancer and things like that. So it's a real
Yeah.
blokey thing to do, but it's fun.
What's it like through the hills on the motorcycle?
Like enough to live close to hills. You can just pick the best road, your favourite road. You got some windy roads and straight roads and a combination of the two. A lot of little country towns. You even have like cafes that kind of almost specialise for motorcyclists. They're kind of like motorcycle cafes. It's kind of goes back to the old cafe racer type of thing. Motorcyclists would just go from cafe to cafe to cafe, and that was their day. But
Yeah.
they got a version of that where you can do that in the hills as well. And you got places where motorcyclists would generally stop for a feed or a drink or something, and swap stories and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Hopefully, when I get this bike, and because I know who's got the bike and they're willing to sell it to me, so I got a Pacific bike. I want to get it here and then start doing the templates, because you need the bike to do the templates on it, so you can make sure it fits, around the seat and the exhaust and the frame and everything
Yeah.
else. And so yeah, it's kind of one of those. Leathercraft is one of those pursuits where you can push it in any direction. It's so versatile.
Mhm.
And even if just within one product range, whether it be a saddlebag, it's just like 100 different styles and versions, and there's just so many different ways you can do it. You can really, as a designer specifically, you can really put your own personality into it. So, which is great.
Yeah. So if you are creating saddlebags for bikes,
Yeah.
are they like if you design it for one bike, is it different for another bike, or will it will a saddlebag fit all motorcycles?
Oh, yeah. You can make you got your different sizes and basic shapes. You can make them more versatile. It really depends on the if you got just a straight sort of wire frame on the side of the bike, then you can just have little buckles that sort of strap to it or something like that, hooks and straps. But yeah, I think inevitably you get people who make like saddlebags for a specific make and model of a bike. Like Harley, for example, you'd have particular bags that go from a particular style of bike, or you'd have a mounting system that would match the bag and that sort of thing. So they're easy to take off and on. You can just little key lock and lift it up and off it. You sort of remove it pretty quickly. Where if you had like little buckle straps, you'd have to obviously undo each one separately and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And because some people, like they're traveling, they don't like to leave their bags on their bike overnight, for example. So they want to be able to take them off and just bring them into a hotel room or whatever, just as luggage sort of thing, and then just reattach them in the morning and off they go. So,
oh, really? That's handy.
But yeah, I mean, it really depends what you want to do. Like some people have them permanently on, they just empty them, and just take out what they need and that sort of thing. And but there's so many different varieties. There's some that they're actually leather on the outside, but they're fiberglass on the inside, and they have key locks and everything on them, so you can leave them locked and with your gear in and that sort of thing as well.
Carrying a safe around.
Really, yeah. So, but yeah, I'm still a bit old school. I like to just it's a bag. It looks like a bag, and it, you can either attaches it or it doesn't. Kind of you got different ways. You got the ones where they kind of clip onto the sides of the bike, and you got the ones that kind of you take the seat off almost, and you can strap it over the frame, and then put the seat back on, and so lots of different things. So yeah. But a bit like traditionally, like with horse people, like with their saddles and their saddlebags and their stirrups and the reins and all the different straps and that they have. It's kind of comes from that. We're kind of this modern age where most of us are deprived of the use of a horse, so the bike kind of takes the place, and the same sort of attitude exists. You really, some people just want it to look like, like it's just really natural, and nothing is plastic and vinyl and stuff. They really want the real leather, and fortunately that hasn't really changed. Yeah.
What's the furthest you've ridden on a motorcycle? Have you gone interstate or?
What was that?
What's the furthest you've ever?
Oh yeah. Well, furthest I've ridden. I rode from Adelaide to Darwin with a little help from a freight train.
What?
This was actually that was my first bike, my 250 Yamaha Trail bike.
Wow.
It was an XT Yamaha 250, air cooled, kickstart, and I rode it from Adelaide to Port Augusta, which is about 300 kilometres, I think, approximately. And I knew someone who worked for the railways, and I got my bike put on a freight train from me and the bike got on the freight train from Port Augusta to Alice Springs, which was about another that must have been 1,200 kilometres, I think. And and they had a sleeper car on there because the train drivers would change, and so I got a cabin on the sleeper car, and the bike was sort of in the caboose, the last wagon on the train, and then I got off. Basically, I woke up in the morning. The train had pulled into the Alice Springs railway yards, and I sort of woke up and it was really quiet. And I thought, "Oh, this train's not moving." I look out the window and I thought, "Oh, I'm in some sort of railway yard." I sort of I get out of the sleeper car and then I look out, open the side door and I look out and I was like, nobody anywhere. I think it was like a Sunday morning or something, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm looking around and I'm like, I don't think there's anyone who's going to help me get this bike off this train. So anyway, I went to the rail car and I untied the bike, and I kind of it was next to fortunately, it was next to a platform, and there was a ramp at the end of the platform. So I got it off, and I sort of like wheeled it down, and still nobody around. And I thought, well, how am I going to get out of here? Is this place locked up or what? I wasn't sure. Anyway, sort of like I put all my gear back on my bike and everything, and all my bags and everything else, and I get on there and I start it up, and I'm sort of riding through Alice Springs, early in the morning, and I figured, well, because I didn't have to pay for anything, it was all sort of a favour. So anyway, I thought, well, I've got another 1,500 kilometres to go, so I better keep moving. So heading north from Alice Springs. For those who know, it's already in Northern Territory, but it's still another like 1,500 kilometres to Darwin. Anyway, and off I go, and I thought, well, okay, and I ride along. It was pretty. Before they did a lot of the roads up, so the actual road was quite narrow, even though it was a main highway. And I'm riding up, and what I did is every time I stopped at a town, would it be like Tennant Creek or Catherine or something like that, I'd go to the local swimming pool, and that would be where I'd rest. I'd have a swim, I'd have a shower. I mean, I had a canteen there, so I could eat. I could just sort of sleep on the lawn. So it was actually good, for like, $3 or $4 or $5, what it is for entry. I had basically use of the whole facilities, which was fantastic. I was thought, oh, this actually works out well. I did camp out overnight because I didn't have much money, so I thought, well, I have to camp out in the middle of nowhere. So I'd just sort of pull off the side of the road and ride in off the road about 100 meters or so, and then set up camp and stuff, move all the rocks out the way, and put some spinifex grass down, put the tent on top of it so it'd be reasonably soft, put my sleeping bag out and that sort of thing, and then try to fall asleep with all the beef cattle mooing away in the night. And I wasn't sure if they were going to come over and check me out, because cows can be a little curious. They lose interest pretty quick, but they can sort of wander around, kind of figure out what's going on. And but yeah, I think I only did that one night, because I did go to one town, and I went to there was like a caravan park there, and I went in for a drink, and the guy saw my bike and he says, "Oh, where you setting up camp tonight?" And I said, "Oh, I was just going to go down the road a bit and go off the road." And he said, "Nah, don't worry about that. Just go camp on the lawn over there," because they had like a tent area, obviously. And so he gave that to me. I think I didn't have to pay for it. I think he figured, well, at least I'll be buying food and drinks there. So that was good. Setting camp up on grass is better than some rocky ground somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And but yeah, eventually I got to Darwin. Poor bike. I'm amazed it even made it. I was basically, as I was riding to Darwin, I was on full throttle, and all the bike could manage was 80 k's an hour.
Oh, what?
And so I thought, I'm not going to be able to ride this thing back to Adelaide. So because I was visiting family and that up there, so I stayed with family and stuff like that. And then I got the bike put on a road train or a freight train back to Adelaide, and then I just took the bus back a few weeks later, which wasn't as fun, but it was an adventure, and I'm glad I did it.
That's incredible.
So, but yeah, probably basically to answer your question, it was about 3,000 k's one way. Wow. So for a little 250 trail bike, that was pretty ambitious.
Yeah. What do you mean? Yeah, what's it like? Like, what do you wear when you go for a ride that long? Because obviously the sun is beating down on you. What do you just wear?
Oh yeah, well, I had a helmet that had, it was like a trail bike helmet, so I had a bit of a visor above the face, and I had goggles, I think, yeah, and but yeah, just long sleeves, gloves, long trousers, boots. I had to cover up because being out in the middle of nowhere, no shade, so had to keep yourself pretty covered. As long as you're moving, you've got that airflow, you actually don't get that hot.
Yeah.
And once you stop, you get hot really quickly. So that was the only problem, because you're going into the tropics as well. So you had all the humidity as well. So that was that was fun, trying to wear all this gear, and it's like 80% humidity.
Oh.
And but I survived.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. So then how did Gully Leather come from? Is that sort of how you named your business Gully Leather, from all the outdoors that you do?
Yeah, that was sort of a mixture. There was no one reason for calling it gully leather,
Yeah.
except for firstly, I did live in Tea Tree Gully at the time, and but that wasn't the main reason for using it. It was I did used to go hiking up a place called Anstey's Hill, which is sort of in Tea Tree Gully, and it's all sort of like a recreation park now with car parks and walking trails and everything now. But when I used to go, there was nothing there. There was just an old abandoned quarry, uh, and there was sort of like blackberry bushes growing everywhere. So I used to go up there and just pick wild blackberries, and so that was kind of my connection to. And plus, I used to ride up. When I had a bike, I used to ride up Titu Gully, up through the gully there. There's a nice ride up there as well. And plus,
Yeah.
I was looking for a name that was short and easy to remember. And,
Mhm.
um, and, and I liked the name Gully. It just had a nice down to earth feel about it. And from I guess from a different perspective, if you're out in the country, or out in the bush or the hills or wherever you are, the gully is normally the nicest place to be. That's normally where it's cooler,
Yeah.
where it's shade. You might have water there. It might be more bird life there. It's just nicer.
Yeah.
Like if you're up on the ridge and it's all rocky and it's hot and it might be good for covering distance. Like if you're walking across land, you want to walk across the top of a ridge where possible. But when you stop, you don't want to stay there on top of the ridge. You want to come down into a nice gully
Yeah.
and just enjoy this little micro environment. And so yeah, there was there was a lot of thought that went
No,
into
I
the
like
name.
that.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
I felt more connection to the name as well.
Yeah.
Rather than just calling it a random name, I just wanted to say no. I wanted to be something that meant something to me on a lot of different levels. It brings back a lot of good memories as well, and so yeah, Gully Leather it was. I
Mhm.
just really enjoyed the gullies and just it was just a nice place to be. It's
Yeah.
just the trees were normally taller as well, and so you had a lot more shade, not just from the hills themselves, but from the trees and yeah, and I mean these days you go on like any walking trail, they generally follow a gully, uh,
Mhm.
whether it be a national park or something like that, or a recreation reserve. The paths inevitably will go through some nice gully areas and plus it was also I wanted to use a name that was kind of typically Australian as well.
Yeah. I
I
was
know
gonna
they
ask
use the
that. Is
word
Gully
gully.
a is
Yeah,
Gully an Australian term?
I wouldn't say it originated in Australia necessarily.
Okay.
I think like I think they use it in America, but like in America they have a lot of different names. Like a gully could be a ravine, it could be a box canyon, it could be just a valley. It could be anything.
Mhm.
So I didn't want to call it ravine leather or box canyon leather. It didn't really have that Australian feel to it.
Yeah.
And I
Ravine leather
felt,
sounds nice
I,
though.
which one?
Ravine leather sounds nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I wanted something that was easy to say as well, and
Yeah.
something that was typically Australian, something I had a
Yeah.
connection to, and just the fact that I was living in Titri Gully at the time just kind of just
Mhm.
confirmed it for me. I thought, yep,
Yeah.
this is the name for me. So yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah.
I guess if you ask a lot of people why they call their leather business what they did, you could probably find that there were a lot of thought gone into it
Yeah.
that they may not even realize. So yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
good.
I definitely understand that because yeah, when you do create a name, it's so hard because it's the opportunities are endless, and it's trying to find that one name out of
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you get some people who kind of like, they might import leather bags from India or Pakistan, and they kind of make up a name. And I sometimes think, do they really have any connection to it? Is it just a sort of a business exercise for them? Or you can kind of tell. I mean, even though they kind of make a business of it, but I just felt, no, if you're going to have your own business, it really needs to be an extension of who you are as a person. It's like a tool is like a hammer is an extension of your arm, and where and a business is an extension not only of your strengths and your interests, but it's an extension of your identity as well. Because you need that, because there are going to be times where things don't really work out the way you want to, but if it's just a business, you think, I'm not really have any attachment to it anyway.
And that's sort of that's sort of the battle between like the craftsman and the businessman. The businessman wants to make, the cut costs to make money sort of thing. Well, not all businessmen, but you're trying to maximize profit, whereas the craftsman wants to make something beautiful. And it's sort of that, when you own your own business, it's that constant tension between the two.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you got to know what your business stands for. Like for me, it's a design business, firstly, and then secondly, it's a quality brand. So eventually I want people to say, when they think of Gully Leather, they think, well, it's quality. It's very well designed. It's very practical. It's very well made. It's not going to fall apart. It's not going to break. I want people to feel, no, if I get something made by Gully Leather, I know it's going to be good. And so that's the craftsman in me, that really wants to be proud of what they made, as opposed to someone who just imports stuff in a brown cardboard box and calls it a business. A craftsman doesn't think that way. It might be easier to just, in some ways, just get your brown cardboard boxes from China or India or somewhere and have a business. But I think for a craftsman, they like the process. They like the way of creating something from nothing and being able to look at a drawing they've sketched out and think, I want to make that. I want to, and imagine all the options, the different colors and sizes and everything else, and who would be the customer and that sort of thing. And ultimately having that relationship with your customers, where they're the ones that are raving about you. They're your marketing almost, in that sense, that they say, oh, this, for example, Gully Leather or whoever it is can say, those, go talk to them. You won't have any problem with them. They're very reliable. If they say they're going to make something for you, they're going to do it, that sort of thing. And then, give them something, they think, wow, well, this is better than what I thought. I mean, it's sort of a hard-nosed businessman might sort of shake his head at that, thinking, you're making a lot of work for yourself. But you don't want to be scared of work. If you're doing work you love, then obviously, you might be intimidated sometimes by the complexity of a business. But, at the end of the day, you think, well, as long as I can make a living at this, I'll keep doing it, even if I don't make $1 million. But you got to. I think getting back to what you're saying about, the differences between a craftsman and a businessman. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be both. It's this reality of it. And you can make these beautiful things, but they're just going to be for yourself and your friends. You're never going to make any money. And you got some leather craftsmen, I mean, I see them online, and they make these beautiful things, and I think, oh, I finally finished this. It's only taking me 3 months. Like, yeah, that's great, but you're not going to make a living making one item every 3 months, And for them, but if they have any aspirations of making a living at it, they've got to do some radically different changes. They've got to
Yeah.
get machinery and, a working space and, place to store your leather and some sort of process, like a product development process. Even if it's just a basic one, you've got to have some way of planning what you're going to make, when,
Yeah.
and who it's for. And, obviously got Christmas season and Father's Day and all these other things. You've got to factor all that in. I think, well, if I'm going to make stuff for Father's Day, I've got to start 3 months before, and I've got to make sure I've got enough, so you've got to think like a businessman.
Mm.
But, at the same time, you've got to think like a craftsman as well.
Yeah.
This is why I really see myself as a designer, because a designer doesn't just design the product. They design the business and they design the customer experience. They design the business from start to, the supply chain innovation. I don't know if you've heard that term
Yeah.
before, where you take
No, I've
something
never
and
heard
you
that.
say you design every step
Yeah.
right to the display in the shop. How is the product displayed, and how the person that comes into that shop, that they're not just buying something, they're really engaging in an experience. Like say for example, right to the point, little details like the shop assistant coming up and explaining what the leather is, what's it used for. It's that sort of it's called information assisted selling. So you're really designing it right to that point where the person who's actually in the shop selling it knows what they're selling. And so like a designer thinks of all those things. And so it might seem a little obsessive to think of every little detail, but unfortunately, if you want to stand out, you got to be more than just a
Mm.
guy that makes this and that. You want to say, well, he's not only selling it, he's explaining what he's selling. And I
Yeah.
find that all the time when I go to a shop, and you ask a question and the person doesn't know what it is, and I just think, well, I'm not going to buy it if I don't know. If you don't know what it is, I'm not going to buy it. So yeah, just little things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because when you first start out in leather craft, you are sort of doing a lot more leather work. Like you're building your products that you want to make, and you're sort of refining your skills. And then sort of when you take that next step, sort of that's sort of the step that I'm in now. Is sort of you're doing a lot less leather work and more trying to get noticed. By building a brand name and trying to market your
Yes.
products, and the leather work sort of becomes a lot more minuscule until you get people
Well,
buying
that's
items.
yeah, yeah. That's the someone once said. They basically said you don't make money from making things; you make money by selling things.
Yeah,
you know, so you
yeah,
got to really think about the selling as well,
yeah,
um, and sometimes you've got to put time aside for that. And
hmm
even if you're going out, visiting people, like stores that would like to stock what you're making, for example, that takes time. And
hmm
ideally, you need a little team, and starting up a business, you ideally, someone who concentrates on the design and the product development and the manufacturing. Then you have someone who probably focuses more on the selling and the, customer interactions and keeping a record of where the interest is. So you're getting feedback from prospective customers, and you're giving that back to the designers, saying, well, people are really asking for this and that, or this, like a wallet. What people are asking for little coin pouches in their wallets. And you might think, well, people don't really use coins anymore. But if people are asking for it, you've got to put it in. But you
yeah,
wouldn't know that unless you're getting that feedback from the sales rep.
hmm
And so you've got to really have that kind of system in place where each person in the team understands that their role, regardless of what it is really a customer-centered role. Even if they never
hmm
even see a customer, they got to
yeah,
understand that this is not just a job. We just do this and do that and you get paid. Do you think you don't get paid by the employer, you get paid by the customer.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I
and
like that.
happy customer, is a good thing. So you got
Hmm.
to think, everybody's got to think like that. I mean, we've all worked with people who don't have that customer centered focus. They
Yeah.
come in, they push their buttons, and and they think, I've done my job, and think, well, there's the what's the quality like? You
Yeah.
look at it, oh, it's a little bit, it's not quite, um, it's not really made properly, and how are you going to expect to sell that? And if it's not getting sold, you're not getting paid, you lose your job. So everyone's got to have a real sort of a quality slash customer focus
Yeah.
to even have a sustainable job. So,
Yeah.
and that's yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the way the world is
Mm,
going, because this is sort of one of my questions, that with a more connected world, instead of
yeah,
competing with the leather crafter down the road, you're
yeah,
essentially competing with everyone else in the world, and you sort
yeah,
of have to leave your mark. And I feel like customer service, like if you're really connected with people, it just, because I know with me, if I'm looking at a product, trying to find a pair of shoes, it's that's pretty much how you try and sort of make your purchase on, how personal
yeah.
and is the person I'm buying from.
Oh yeah, I think
It's just
it's. I
fascinating.
think you really got to have a mission. You've heard of the term a mission statement. You walk into a business and they have, this is my mission statement up on the wall, and they're quite generic and they
Oh,
don't really
mission
stand out.
statement? Is that what you said?
You know,
Mission?
a mission statement. Like some companies have got a mission statement, which means this is why we exist.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you really want to stand out as a business, your mission's really got to be, who is your customer and what do you admire about your customer. And
Hmm.
this goes right back to when I was saying that when I was a little kid and how I admired certain types of lifestyles, and the sense of adventure and that sort of thing. And if you want to stand out, then you can think, well, I've got to look for customers that have that same uh, fire, that same sort of maybe a little wild heart. They just really want to. They go out and they do things. Whether it be recreational things or whether it's part of their own. Um, you really got to be a company that says, these are the people we admire, whether they're our customers or not. These are the people we admire, and they're the sort of customers you ultimately want to draw from. And so for me, I've asked myself the same question, like, how am I going to stand out? What am I doing? Is it really matter? We all ask that question. We all have those questions. But to my answer, to me, and I guess to anybody, is, you to stand out. You've got to be the person who says, this is why we're here. Well, like, I think, well, if I really love motorcycling, it's exciting. It's a lot more interesting than just getting in the average car and going from A to B. And if I market it myself, say, to motorcyclists, not that I'll do that personally, specifically. I mean, there's companies that do that, which is fine. But, I want to identify with that spirit, like the same spirit that Amelia Earhart got in an airplane and flew, around the world, or Charles Lindbergh, or people like that, who just, incidentally just wore these great big flying leather coats and stuff, these big gauntlet gloves, and it was all cool, and identifying with that type of, and marketing yourself as such, and not just marketing yourself on the features of your product, but the benefits. What is it? What's it for? What can it be used for? And like it's like a big bag that can take into a nice high end hotel, or you can strap it on the back of your motorbike and go for a riding trip, camping out. You just sort of whatever you want it to be. You've got to sort of, so you're really not promoting your product. You're really promoting the person who uses that product, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
there's a term
I
for
mean, a
that. I
lot of
think it's called
companies,
it's like association. I don't know the specific term for it, but it's association where you associate a product with something like you know a motorcycle bag and then adventure. You associate the
yeah,
two.
yeah, yeah, and the whole Australian side of thing as well. Like
Yeah,
Australian made for us. Australian adventurers or whatever it is. You
yeah,
kind of you'd have to word it. You'd have to be. You'd have to sit down and condense it down to something that's really just feel. Yeah, that's my mission, and that's what I want to do. It's not about just being a very happy craftsman, but you want to be known for a particular thing.
yeah,
You want to be the go-to person. So you don't want to be the jack of all trades necessarily that makes everything for everyone. Even though for a craftsman that can be very tempting. I know I think I'd like to get excited about all these different things and you know and but at the same time, I think I could probably, I'd have to make stuff for women as well. I mean, I'm so have to think about handbag design. I think, well, I don't wear handbags, but I can appreciate the design, if it's a good design.
yeah,
And so you got to think, a little bit wider than probably your narrow interests. But
mm.
you don't want to go overboard and just make everything for everybody.
Yeah.
There are certain things.
I remember when did my first ever market, and I want to get back into doing markets again because I think markets are just they're brilliant because you got the customers and you sort of can see their reactions to your product and that sort of stuff. But I remember when I did my first
Yeah,
market, I did a Christmas market in 2018, and all I had
yeah,
was minimalist wallets, and I had my one type of minimalist wallet and a belt and all that sort of stuff, and a belt.
yeah,
And it's so
yeah,
interesting because the customers, I know, first of all, you get the judgment of people, but second of all, you
yeah,
really notice that you design things that you like. Like
yeah.
that was my early stage of leathercraft, and all those products I designed them because I liked them, and it might have not been what the customer wants. So I thought that was such an interesting experience.
Oh, it is. Yeah, when I did a few markets as well, and it was very interesting. Some of the, like, because you kind of trying to work out the feedback from customers, and yeah, people come up and talk and stuff, which is fine. And then you get people who won't even look at you, just invisible,
Yeah,
just walk by.
I
And I
know.
thought, and it's like not necessarily they didn't like what I had or anything, but I remember was one guy. He had this little kid on his shoulders, and he was obviously, young dad. I think he had another child in tow as well, and I think he was just following his wife around, and he just looked like a normal bloke, and he didn't even give me eye contact. And I wondered for a long time why was that? It was not even just sort of a casual glance at the table, and all I could put it down to is um, he was probably comparing him to me, or maybe I don't know for sure. But I'm thinking, well, I'm doing something, and he probably was a little frustrated being a young dad, having to devote so much time to kids. I mean, I've had young kids, I understand, you know. So yeah, but that was just a little thing. But I found that with some of the markets I did, that the other market stalls were buying my stuff for their kids, so they're buying them as gifts, and so I found that it's definitely the gift side of things is important. You've got to have something small enough, like I said, like a wallet or a key ring or something that someone say, yeah, I know my son loves this or something, and so it's not a everyone's individual, but I found for me personally as the seller, I had to really be focused on the customer. I found that was while I
Yeah,
was there, and
yeah,
because I went to other stalls as well and bought things, and the one thing that annoyed me was that you would buy something off the stall, and the stall owner was all smiling and engaging and everything else, right? And soon as the purchase is approved, it was like I disappeared. Literally, they just boom. It's like I'm still here, you know, and it's like they're engaging until the moment the payment goes through, and then they just look down and they're just rearranging the table, and I'm like, I haven't even walked away from the table yet, you know. I thought that was that's something I would never want to do. I said I'm there
Yeah.
for the customer,
Yeah.
whether they buy something or just bought something. There's nothing worse than buying something and then the person doesn't want to engage with you anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake. I think that's why some people don't succeed.
Mhm.
It's because they're there for the purchase, not for the customer.
Mhm.
And I'd rather make the purchase and still, if no one else around, I'll still,
Mhm.
I'll still talk with them and take an interest in them. It's
Yeah.
not just the purchase I want. Those
Mhm.
important as that is. I want that person to know that, oh, that was a good experience. I
Yeah.
enjoyed that. I got something. I got something out of it. I bought something, but I'm really glad. I'm happy to buy from that guy again because I like that guy. That's standing behind that table.
Mhm.
And so little things like that are so important when you're interacting with customers. And so if you have that focus, I don't believe you would that to be like a competitive advantage, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Like it's saying, I really want to stand out. How do we stand out? Do we do marketing? Do we do our online stuff? I mean, we do a lot of things to stand out. But at the end of the day, those opportunities you have to engage with a prospective customer is so valuable because they're the ones that are going to go, you know what? Oh, thanks for. I really enjoy this product I bought, and I'm going to take your card as well. I know somebody I can give that to. But if I
Yeah.
resent the purchase, I felt like I'm a bit used a bit. They got their purchase, and then they just turn off like a robot. It's like, I found I thought, no, that's not good.
Yeah.
If you want to have regular customers specifically, because that's sometimes the life of a business having return customers. You want people to feel that their first interaction with you was human and interesting. And
Yeah.
they take an interest in them, and they think, oh, that's an interesting person who just sold me that, and you know,
Yeah.
and
That actually leads on to
I
the
heard
next
I read a
question,
book once.
actually.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, go on.
yeah, yep,
I was going to say, so, yeah, so I was going
yes,
to ask, do you think because of the rise of small leather crafters, this has dented the mainstream quote unquote luxury industry? Because I feel like 2 years ago, like within the past 2 years, there's been an explosion of leather work and
yes,
and sort of a mistrust of the main luxury brands, especially where they're made and the the, the the quality of materials that they use. It's more so. I feel like there's a lot more like they're more under a microscope now as opposed to used
yeah, and so they
online.
should be. I mean, when you're paying top dollar, I'm talking about $5,000 for a bag. You want to, there's more than just the bag. Again, it's that whole sort of thing. Well, who made it? Was it a sweatshop in Pakistan, or was it made by a craftsman, or I mean, I guess for me, getting back to us saying that I was a quality brand, that's to say that I'm not a luxury brand, because a luxury brand, I Louis Vuittons and Hermes and all these really high end companies, and then you have companies which you call quality brands, where you still can get a reasonably high price for your product because you're selling quality and that sort of thing. You're not like as opposed to a budget brand who just selling everything for 69.99. You're not going to get much quality from that sort of company. So you really want to position yourself somewhere in the middle where you say, well, we're a quality brand. We're not competing with the luxury brands. You make it very obvious that it's Australian made. It's like, for me, I'll be saying It's designed in Australia. It's made in Australia by an Australian company. You know, because if
Yeah.
you want to have that sort of Australian rugged product, you know, that's kind of part of what I want to do as well. So,
Mm.
say for example, if someone comes in from overseas, it's for like a tourist, they buy things like that. I've been to Sydney, and it's just 95% tourists, and they're walking around with their paper shopping bags that from high end stores, and they're obviously after luxury brands, but they they why would a person travel 1,000 kilometers on a plane to another country and buy something that they could potentially buy in their own country,
Mm.
because they're coming here for the experience, and ideally buying something that reminds them of their holiday. That's why
Mm.
I want people, if they buy something come overseas and buy something I made here in Australia, they can say this is made in Australia. When they go back, and they go, oh, wow, this is really nice.
Yeah.
And so I think um, the quality, the luxury brands can be a bit sneaky, and
Mm.
they can pretend, oh, this is made in Italy, but it's really made in a
Yeah,
factory
I've
in a
heard
Chinese
stories
factory
where
somewhere.
like it'll be made in China or one of those countries, and then it'll come to Italy, and then they'll sort of finish it off, and they'll say, "Oh, it's made in Italy." So it's
Yeah, yeah.
that's the thing that I don't
I've
like about that's the
heard of
dark
those
side of
stories too. Yeah,
marketing, which I don't like.
yeah. When you're talking about high end luxury brands that can sell something for many thousands of dollars,
Mm.
if they can make an extra $1,000 off a purchase, then they'll think, well, yeah. And a lot of Chinese companies, they don't care as long as they get paid. They just have an agreement where, okay, we'll make it for you. We won't tell anyone. You give us a good price for it, and we will call it a day. And then
Mm-hmm.
they get still sort of boxed up, and shipped off to Italy, and it's either sold in Italy or sold. It could be, that's the thing. It could be sold anywhere in the world, and you can put a "Made in Italy" label on it. And who are they to know? It's uh, I don't think it happens all the time, but
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
heard stories of it
yeah,
happening,
exactly.
here and there. Yeah, and that's where you really want that. Going again back to that reliability thing. If you've got a tag that says "Made in Australia," you can be pretty sure it is. And who would make something
Mm-hmm.
overseas and put that tag on it? I mean, they
Yeah.
would lose all credibility if they get exposed.
Mm.
So you certainly don't want to go down that road. So yeah,
Yeah, and it's sort of that education about what goes into a product, because I know that if I'm designing a wallet, you have to factor in the leather you use and like the square foot and even just like you might just find out what the square foot is, and then the stuff that's going to be and that's enough to be like $40 or sixty
yeah,
dollars of just leather itself, and then you have to
yeah,
add on your
yeah,
labor and your profit and that sort of stuff, where I think people need to also understand that it's not just if you're pricing something that might be a bit expensive, it's not you're not making $200 on that item, because you have to factor in the
yeah,
leather that might cost $60, so you're not making two hundred
yeah,
dollars. So it's the whole, and I think we're slowly getting there as well, because as more people have started to buy more local, they're happy to pay
yeah.
extra.
Yeah, I think the people who complain about the price of a leather product are not your customer anyway, and you got to sort of see it that way. I think if you look at a market and they look at it, and this happened to me. I had one guy come up to me, and I had a really nice uh, trifold wallet, lots of pockets and folds,
Yeah.
and it's a very complicated design. And I was only selling it for like $65 or something. And he went up to me and said, "Oh, I'll give you 50 for it." And I'm like, "No, I can't do that. Sorry." "No, no worries." Put it down. He walked off. And I wasn't disappointed, because he wasn't my customer.
Yeah.
He didn't appreciate firstly the amount of leather that was in it, the amount of workmanship, the quality of the product and everything else. And so you got to sort of, even though I'm very customer focused, I also appreciate there are people who are not your customer. Anyone who comes up and complains about the price, they're not your customer. They think, oh, I can buy that at Cheapest Chips for $5. And say, well, firstly, what's there is not leather, and it's not the same quality, and it won't last as long, and it won't improve with age. A leather wallet actually gets better as it gets older. Whereas you buy something that's artificial, it's going to just look worse and worse the more you use it.
Yeah.
And I think it's you just got to really say, well, potentially anyone's my customer, but there are some I think, well, that's fine. Unfortunately, that's based on the materials and the labour. That's fair price. And if they don't think it's fair, then that's fine. They'll go off and buy cheap plastic one. But yeah, that's it, and that kind of takes the guilt away as well, because you have that kind of designer's guilt. You want to make something beautiful, and you want to sell it.
Exactly.
And not that you're guilty for anything. You just got to be justified in your own mind that the price, and for any craftsman, that's the hardest part, isn't it? Like, has had this problem. I think, well, they really got to put a price tag on it. And but you don't want to make it too low either, because you don't want to run out of product. I mean, you could sell things. You could go to a market and sell everything off the table in 2 hours if you sell everything for $2. But you take you too long to replace all that stock. So you got to price again.
Yeah, crafter's guilt it's not fun, because it's it's hard to. You don't want to sell your products too low, but not having too dear as well.
If you're going to make leather wallets, for example, you got to think. Well, just say your minimalist wallet. You got to say, okay, how many minimalist wallets can I get out of one hide? And then you got to use up the whole hide. And getting back to pricing again too. You think, well, this is the price of the hide. This is the price of each wallet. Then you can work out how many wallets you need to make to first cover the cost of the hide itself, and then obviously labour and everything on top of that. And but it would be pretty easy to work out. It's just cost. The cost of, say, you can make 6 wallets out of one hide. Then okay, if each wallet is $50, and you bought the hide for $80, then you need to make about 2 wallets to cover the cost of the hide. Then the other 3 would be labour and profit. So you could probably kind of work out things without actually being a mathematician. Just based on what each hide is worth and how much time it takes to make everything. And because like any business, you've got to work out what your billable hours are, if you know what I mean. Like, say if you're a graphic designer, for example, and you're doing posters and advertising that for clients, you can't bill 8 hours a day, because you're doing other things. You're doing your accounting, you're doing stock replenishment, you're doing taking phone calls, you're doing a lot of other things. So you got to think, well, okay, my billable hours is, say, 5 hours a day, even though I'm working 8 hours a day. So you've got to work out, okay, I need to make X amount per month, cover my expenses and make a little money for paying my rent or mortgage and car payments and everything else. And then you've got to work out how much you need to charge based on what your monthly target is. So see, that's the business brain side of things. You've got to think like that. And that's what I'm saying. You can be a designer, but you got to think how much money do I need to make a month? And that's pretty easy to work out. You can work out, and that's a good target. Like we work better towards targets anyway. If we've got a target, like I need to earn this much per month. It doesn't matter if I fluctuate week to week. At the end of the month, I need to have this much to survive. and they think, well, okay, that means I need to make so many wallets, so many bags, so many key rings, so many whatever, I need to sell that much to make that much per month so I can do it again next month. And so, yeah, you don't, like, I'm not a mathematician by any stretch of the imagination, but, it's pretty easy to work out. You just have to work out your target amount and how much you need to make for that month, and then just work out, okay, I need to sell that much. You can kind of work it out. You wouldn't get an exact amount, but you need that target, if you know what I mean. Like when you're starting out, you might sell a couple of wallets at a market and think, whoa, a win, and then, you may not go to another market for another month, and so you haven't really made any money because you've only covered the costs of your materials, but,
yeah.
market fees and everything else.
No,
But it's good to have. It's good to have a target.
yeah, I do like that because I remember the market that I went to. I think I remember I did two. It was over like some weekends, but I remember one time I think I sold two wallets or one wallet, something like that, and it's just, yeah, like, all your hard work and effort, but then, the market fee is $50 to just to have a stall. So,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
you, your sales do get chewed up quite easily, before you actually do
Oh, definitely.
make a profit.
Definitely. Yeah. Like I had an Etsy sale the other day. It was only a $6.50 item. It wasn't even leatherwork. It was just a bit of hardware that I had left over. I've been selling, and I thought, well, by the time I did bought the post pack and the stamp
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything else, I think I made like 50 cents.
Oh, really?
It's like, oh, because it's just a small item, but
Yeah.
you've got to package it, and because it was metal, I had to protect it so it didn't get bent in the mail, and because it's just sort of like thin metal, so I had to make sure it wasn't going to get damaged in the process. And I thought, oh, I've just done all this work and I only made like 50 cents
Yeah.
from a $6.50 item, and but that's the bit, obviously, mailing off cheap things like that isn't going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think my ultimate goal is to have sort of a factory outlet. So I have the sort of workshop in the back, and I have the factory outlet in the front, and so people can actually come in, and you have some foot traffic, if you know what I mean. And not that
Yeah.
you're relying solely on foot traffic, because you
Yeah.
have online sales,
Yeah.
and you can sell to other stores and all that sort of stuff as well. But you just got to have a strategy that covers a lot of different ways of selling. That's probably my main point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, actually, that's handy as well because I was going to ask. So how do you see craftsmanship with the use of the internet?
It's definitely sense that it makes more of a level playing field, and obviously a lot more players.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
but
algorithms.
yes, and that gets back to one of your original questions about standing out. It's especially online, and definitely if you want to stand out online, you've got to have good photography and
Oh, yeah.
put a little effort into it, and that sort of thing. And but everything, just obviously the product itself. As long as people can see the product, or at least be able to click on it and get a zoom view of it or something like that. And but yeah, it's online, with the whole sort of shopping cart thing, and and what color should the buttons be, and all these things that people obsess about. They're important. But I think it's reasonably easy to stand out regardless of the crowd, particularly when I call it the brown cardboard box crowd, who don't really have any control over the design process or anything. They're just trying to sell something they imported from who knows where, and Um, that's what I like. That's what attracts me to making things. You stand out straight away. You can say designed. If you're a designer company, like a perfect example would be a company like Nike or Adidas. They're probably the best known companies for making, not necessarily leather products, but they do make some. Is they're a design company. They design the product, they design the advertising, they design the packaging, they design the selling experience. Um, they don't make anything. They don't make the shoes. They make them in China, who knows where. But because they're a design company,
Vietnam. My ones are
they
in
can,
Vietnam.
yeah, they can have control of the whole image of the brand. Yeah,
No, I actually thought that was quite interesting because I never thought of it, those brands in that sort of way as them being
yeah,
designing companies.
yeah. Most of the biggest design brands don't make anything. They're just a big. They have a HQ somewhere where they're one floor's the design department, the other one's the packaging, or the other one's the accounting department, the other one's the licensing agreement company that actually make the things. They have their product development department, but they don't actually make anything. As such. They just organize everything. They're like it's a bit like like if you own McDonald's. You don't actually the company that the headquarters don't make hamburgers. They just design everything else. And all the franchisees, they're the ones that actually make the hamburgers. So they're kind of. But if you want to stand out as a company, even just a one man show, if you're making things, you have complete control of what you make, when you make it, who you sell it to. You're a lot more flexibility. Whereas let's say a company like Adidas. They make more than just shoes. They make all sorts of things, but they just organize people to do it for them. But I think
Yeah,
if you're a design company that also makes things, then you've got the best of both worlds, you know, and you're not relying other people to make things properly, because you can get someone to make it, and then you get it and you think, oh, this is rubbish. It's they didn't make it properly. It's not the right size, or it's they've used cheap materials, or it's falling apart, or it's got holes in it, or just all sorts of horrible things can go on. That's why I think it's great when you're a manufacturer, because you can not only control the product, but you can control your brand image as well, and and push it in any direction. You got more agile. If you see a change in the market, you can feel that without having to think, oh, now I have to go talk to Pakistan and get them to change that design. It's kind of, yeah, it's too hard. I think it's a lot easier to talk to the people that actually make things on the spot.
yeah. I
And
remember I saw a video and one of the people was saying that because like modern day, companies, governments, they're so humongous.
yeah,
People are more going back to um, there's something more satisfying as to just going back and you sort of making it yourself. Because
yeah,
you can't understand, how I can't even fathom how you know Nike would like how it's structured. Whereas I just go out into the shed and make a leather product, and you are the head designer, photographer. You are all those people
yes,
creating it. You don't have. It would be nice to have a photographer or a designer but you sort of embody all those careers when you're making something
oh
yourself.
yeah. Some designs, as with your minimalist wallet, sometimes the simplest things can be the most beautiful, and that, for example, so you don't have to over engineer anything. You just have to think, well, how can I make it look absolutely fantastic, and and make it really well. And even if it is a minimalist thing, sometimes the really busy products, they just look, they're just like, you can tell they're cheap, you know. although you can tell that they're made in China or somewhere just by the fact that how many pockets are on that bag or whatever. And it's like, well, there's a lot of work gone into it, but it just doesn't look good, you know. I don't think a lot of these people who make these things really understand the customer. They just think, oh, if I put as many features in it as possible, then it's going to sell. But sometimes I think, oh, it's just too much. You know, it's too bulky, too complicated. Too many things can break or go wrong, and you know, I'm not going to go near it. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I remember I took apart a wallet just to see what's inside of it. Just a mass produced wallet.
yeah,
And yeah, there was just so much labor in that wallet. You know, there was cardboard for structure. There was just all this stitching and
yeah, linings and all sorts of
yeah,
things. Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's nylon lining or whatever lining it is.
yeah,
It's just, and then with a wallet that I make or that you make, it's just two pieces of leather, leather T pocket with a pocket on front, and it's just and then stitched around the outside. It's just
yeah.
a lot more, a lot less labor as opposed to some of these manufactured wallets.
Yeah, yeah. No, I always sort of wondered about that too. I thought, you know, they, I think, the only reason they're making that way is so they don't have to use so much leather.
Yeah, well,
You know,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
the only leather you see is the leather that's on the outside. You know, there's nothing
Yeah.
on the inside. There's leather.
Mhm.
You know, and so you know, because they're working in volume. Obviously, I think
Yeah,
they can
exactly.
save
Yeah.
if they can save 10 cents on a wallet. You know, 10,000 times. That's a lot of money.
Mhm.
So can understand why you do it, but again, that's that market. You know, it's and again, you have Western companies are doing that. Like Colorado they used to have their own stores. They used to sell clothes and boots and bags and everything. Now, well, they still make boots, but they don't sell them in their own branded stores anymore. But yeah, you go into these bag shops and they're just full of Colorado wallets and just dozens and dozens of different designs. And but you can tell they don't make them. They're
Mm.
just made in China or somewhere. They just put their brand on it because they had that brand history. They can do that in a way.
Yeah,
You know, they
exactly.
can just they're probably a bit like Nike and Adidas. You know, they don't once they get into sort of thing. Okay, we'll just order another 50,000 of this and the 50,000 that, and they distribute it to all the different bag shops around the world. That's probably more than enough for them now. And but they're not designing. They're not a designer company anymore. They're just a yeah commodity.
Well, talking about design, because you said you had your designer background. Did you design that logo yourself?
I did, yeah,
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's impressive. Okay.
yeah. I went in there. I did so many different versions of it, different fonts and different styles, and even different names in the early days. Just
Mhm.
because Gully was only one option at one point, and yeah, I still can show you. I got hundreds of different designs, and that font that I use is actually a modified font as well. So it's not a 100% existing font. So I went in there and simplified it as well. So
Yeah.
and condensed it down and took out some of the serifs on it and that sort of thing. And yeah, really played around with the spacing between the letters. Everything is basically artwork now. It's not a font anymore.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I should have got
so
you to design my logo.
yeah, yeah. I've designed a lot of logos in my time.
Oh really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
What any ones in particular that stand out?
Logos.
Yeah, that
Um,
you've designed.
um, oh, um, not really. I mean, they're all done years ago. Like when I was working for newspapers or something like that, or a
Yeah.
design studio. Um, yeah, nothing that really stands out. I did so many. I mainly focused on the advertising side of things.
Mhm.
Occasionally, they might say, "Well, I don't actually have a logo," and I would sort of create one for them and say, "Do you like it?" And they go, "Love it," and then they're okay, it's yours. So it was just part of the advertising most of the time. And because people knew they needed to advertise, but they didn't really have a sort of a brand kind of perspective. So kind of had to help them out a little bit.
Yeah.
And
No, that's cool.
yeah, a lot of them didn't have any idea. I mean, they sold swimming pools or who knows what. They weren't really marketing people, so they kind of come to us, and
Yeah.
we would help them out, get everything all neat and tidy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they would have a logo and I wouldn't even have it. I'd say, oh, can you send me a logo? And I get them to. This is the old days when they had fax machines. I say, can you blow it up in the photocopy as big as you can make it, and then fax it to me? And then they'd fax it to me, and because it'd be all pixelated, I'd have to go with the pen and straighten it all up again.
Yeah.
And then so that some people just had no idea how important the logo was.
Yeah.
And sort of like it was almost like an afterthought. It's like, do you have a logo? And they're like, do I need one? Yes, you do. It's like funny. Some people manage to have a business and not even have a logo. It just scratch my head sometimes. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember my first logo that I made it myself. It was just on Word.
Yeah.
And you just play around with the font, and then you get the line, and then screen clip it and make it a. But I ended up getting a logo done. Well, last year, I say that now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I just need a stamp now. Need to get a stamp made up.
Yeah.
Stamp a
I got a
little,
few stamps made up
Oh,
too.
do you?
So my logo actually has a few different versions.
Yeah.
That I'll use for different things. So it's the same logo essentially, but some are more horizontal and some are
Yeah.
vertical and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So I have some variations, and which I'll potentially be using.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. But that was all part of the design process as well. It
Yeah.
wasn't. I said it was always about designing a company rather than just designing a product. And
Yeah.
I think it was, and that's the advantage that designers have, is that they can think, okay, I can just create my own advertising, I can create my own graphics, I can create my own logo, I can create my own invoices, I can create my own posters, and then, and of course, if you're a product designer, you think, I'll design my products as well,
Mhm.
and then design the whole way the business runs on top of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And
like the waterfall that goes down. I like that.
yeah, well, I'm glad you did, because some people, it doesn't. I wanted to create a logo that wasn't completely obvious, but not cryptic either. So you do get some people go, "What is that?"
Yeah.
And so I wanted that because I wanted people to take a second look as well, like,
Yeah.
and I didn't want it to be like completely minimalist logo. I'm actually, even though I love minimalist design, I don't like minimalist logos.
Like
Like you
mine.
got, like you
Mine's
got
very
like
minimalist.
yeah, like you got a logo that's just an orange square or something, and you go like, well, what do they do? It's like it was just all of a trend, because like anything, the graphic design industry goes through these trends, which means people are copying each other.
Yeah.
So you kind of like go through this huge stage where all the logos were like really cryptic, and you're like, how does that help anyone understand what they do?
Oh yeah. I can't. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I think when I look at a logo, you should be able to see what it is like
Yeah,
straight away. I don't like it's there's just like a letter and they put a triangle with it and it's just
yeah,
what,
exactly.
and then it's all encrypted.
That's why it's very important I had the word leather in my logo, because I wanted
Yeah.
people to know straight away, okay, they have something to do with leather,
Yeah.
and a lot of leather makers do that, fortunately, and they always seem to have leather in their logo. Not all of them, but a lot
Yeah.
of them, which is good.
Yeah. Well,
So
it was interesting when I was getting my logo design because I remember, I was writing it out on paper and that sort of stuff. And originally it was going to be like Joseph, leather, and then have, two threads,
yeah,
coming down to the bottom, like tied up, from
Yeah.
coming from two spools either side. And the graphic
Yeah.
designer who I got it through, she said about, these days it's more like you want it more simple. You don't want it to be complicated.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really happy how she designed my one now with the J with the thread.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I design my business card, I actually just down one side of the card I put a stitch line.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
just not the part of the not part of the logo itself. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a single stitch line that runs down the right side of I think it's the right side of the business card,
Yeah.
and just simple, just to let people know. Okay, it's because people love. You get people look at leather products and they always look at the stitching. So I
Yeah,
thought, well, I'm going to
that's
put
what I do.
stitching.
I love
Yeah,
this. I love looking at making sure it's all lined up.
yeah, yeah,
Just yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's good.
Nah. Thanks for that, Steve. I think that was a good episode, over an hour.
Was
Uh,
it? Oh, well,
that's good. I'll make sure I'll link your Etsy in the description, so if anyone wants to check out your website, they really can. So, no, thanks for being on the show,
I appreciate it. No, it's
Steve.
been great. It's been great. Yeah,
I have to get you back
yeah,
because like with
yeah.
this, I didn't know all that stuff about you before. You
Oh,
adventure and
yeah.
all
I've
that.
got a lot of facets.
I want to hear definitely.
Yes, I haven't even gone into my writing or illustration or anything like that yet.
Yeah. No, no, thanks for that,
Yeah,
Steve.
I got a lot of a lot of things happening, and
Yeah.
sometimes you got to go in different directions to get a bit of an overview of what you're capable of. So
Yeah.